Uruk, southern Mesopotamia. Approximately 2100 BCE, a Sumerian high priestess named Enheduanna, the first author in human history whose name we actually know, writes that she has been seized by the heavens and impregnated by the sky godin. Her clay tablets, now housed in the British Museum and Yale's Babylonian collection, describe the physical sensation of divine penetration. She doesn't call it metaphor, she calls it her qualification to rule, and she wasn't alone. Enheduanna's cuneiform texts are catalogued as YBC 4656 and HS 1884. They're real, they're translated, and they reveal something historians have tried to sanitize for decades. Across at least 4 continents, ancient state religions didn't just tell stories about gods mating with humans. They built legal systems, royal dynasties, and temple economies around women who claimed to carry hybrid children. Today you'll discover why Bronze Age empires needed Starborn infants, how Mesoamerican priests documented the physical traits of divine offspring, and the archaeological evidence that these weren't fringe cults, but state-sponsored breeding programs that shaped civilization for 3,000 years. Enheduanna was born around 2285 BCE, daughter of Sargon of Akkad. Her father didn't just make her a priestess, he installed her as priestess of the moon god, Inanna at Ur, the most powerful religious position in Sumer. The job description, preserved in administrative tablets from the 3rd dynasty of Ur, included one non-negotiable duty: ritual union with the divine during the sacred marriage ceremony called the Hieros Gamos. The temple records don't describe this as symbolic. They inventory the linen sheets. They document the specific chamber. They record the witnesses. Assyriologist Gwendolyn Leake's analysis of Temple Archive, IM 58451, shows that these unions were considered legally binding contracts. If a priestess became pregnant following the ritual, the child was registered as divine property, exempt from normal taxation, and educated separately. The tablets use the Sumerian term Dumodinger, godchild. By 2000 BCE, at least 17% of Ur's temple administration claimed this bloodline, according to prosopographical studies of cuneiform personnel lists. But here's what makes this stranger than religious theater. These women had institutional power specifically because they claimed hybrid pregnancy, not despite it. Because of it. Jump forward to Egypt. Approximately 1470 BC, Queen Hatshepsut commissions a series of reliefs at Deir el-Bahari that show the god Amun in physical form visiting her mother Amis. The hieroglyphic text, translated by Egyptologist James Henry, breasted in 1906, records Amun saying, "Knemet, Amun Hatshepsut, shall be the name of this daughter whom I have placed in thy body." The inscription uses the word ket, meaning physical body, not ka or ba, the terms for soul or spirit. Hatshepsut wasn't crazy. She was legally cornered. Egyptian succession law required male heirs. She had none. But the Deir el-Bahari text, now catalogued as Urk 4216 to 235, gave her an out. If she was the product of divine insemination, she wasn't just a queen. She was a god herself, a pharaoh. The reliefs don't show symbolic rays of light. They show Amun sitting on a bed with her mother, knees touching, hands clasped. Egyptologist Cooney's 2014 analysis identified 9 separate royal women who made identical claims between 50 and 1070 BC. Each one faced a succession crisis. Each one commissioned a temple text documenting divine conception. The pattern is documented. When human law failed women in power, they appealed to cosmic law. Now move to Greece, approximately 350 BCE. Plutarch's Life of Alexander, written 5 centuries later, but citing the now-lost Royal Macedonian archives, records that Olympias, Alexander the Great's mother, told her son he was fathered by Zeus in the form of a serpent. Alexander believed her. Philip II, his legal father, apparently didn't contest it. Why? Because the Argead dynasty already claimed descent from Heracles, himself a product of Zeus and a mortal woman. If you wanted to rule Macedon, Starborn ancestry wasn't blasphemy. It was your resume. But the Romans took it further and left receipts. Rome, 63 BCE, a woman named Aurelia gives birth to a son who will become Julius Caesar. Suetonius, writing in the 12 Caesars around 121 C, using Imperial archives, records that Aurelia's family, the Aureli, claimed descent from Venus through Aeneas. Not poetically, genealogically, Caesar had coins minted showing Venus as his ancestor. Catalog number RRC 458/1, housed in the British Museum, shows her star above his head. When Caesar's heir Octavian took power, he renamed himself Augustus and declared Caesar a god by senatorial decree in 42 BCE that made Augustus Divi Filius son of a god. The Roman historian Cassius Dio, writing around 230 CE, records that Augustus's mother Asia told people she'd been impregnated by Apollo in the god's temple. Dio cites earlier sources now lost, including the memoirs of Augustus's own physician. The story wasn't fringe gossip, it was official propaganda. Augustus put Apollo on the coinage. He built the Temple of Apollo Palatinus next to his house. The message was clear. This isn't just a powerful family. This is a hybrid bloodline. But the cost of rejecting this system was lethal. The Roman senator Cato the Younger, who opposed Caesar's divinity claims, was forced to commit suicide in 46 BC. The philosopher Seneca, who privately mocked Claudius's deification, was later ordered to kill himself by Nero. Divinity wasn't optional for Roman elites, it was survival. And the state enforced it with execution, now cross the Atlantic. Because the exact same legal structure appears in Mesoamerica, despite zero contact with Rome. The Popol Vuh, the Acacia Maya creation text recorded in the 1550s by Dominican friar Francisco Ximenez, describes a woman named Ixquic who becomes pregnant when the severed head of a god spits into her hand. She gives birth to the hero twins Hunahpu and Espalanque. Anthropologist Dennis Tedlock's 1985 translation includes a critical detail most summaries omit. Ixquic's pregnancy is tested by the gods. They demand proof. She provides physical evidence, a bowl of what the text calls tree sap, but which she presents as her blood. The gods accept it. She's granted divine status. For decades, scholars read this as mythology, pure symbol. But in 1946, archaeologist Alberto Ruz Lulier discovered something in Temple XIII at Palenque, a tomb containing a woman covered in jade, cinnabar, and pearl materials reserved for royalty buried, with artifacts linking her to celestial deities. Osteological analysis done in 2011 showed she died around age 60 in approximately 672 CE. Hieroglyphic texts in the tomb, deciphered by epigrapher David Stewart, identify her as Sisokbu Ajaw, the mother of Kainich Kanbalan II. The glyphs call her Ixik Kvine woman. The phrase appears in conjunction with star glyphs. The same term appears in monuments for at least 8 other Maya noble women across 5 city-states between 600 and 800 CE. Archaeologist Tressie Ardron's 2002 study found that every single one held unprecedented political authority, land ownership, military command, or regency. And every single one had inscriptions linking them to celestial impregnation myths. The legal formula was identical to Hatshepsut's, written 2,100 years earlier and 8,000 miles away. Convergent evolution, not of biology, of power. But the darkest evidence comes from the Inca. Cusco, Peru, approximately 1430 CE. The Inca Emperor Pachacati establishes the Aclawasi, the houses of chosen women. Spanish chronicler Pedro Ciza de Leon, writing in 1553 based on eyewitness testimony and Inca administrative keepus, describes these as state-run institutions where selected girls were sequestered from age 10. The most beautiful and noble were designated virgins of the sun. Their purpose, according to the relation de los Cuopocamayos, recorded in 1542, was to remain ritually pure for potential union with Inti, the sun god. But Caesar's account includes something chilling. If a virgin of the sun became pregnant, she wasn't punished. She was promoted. The child was taken by the state and raised as Wawa Inti, child of the sun. Garcilaso de la Vega, himself the son of an Inca princess and a Spanish conquistador, wrote in 1609 that these children were educated separately and often became priests or administrators. The Spanish destroyed the Acloasi system in the 1570s, but the records they kept now in the Archivo General de Indias in Seville show at least 43 Wawu Inti were documented between 1438 and 1532. 43 children registered by the state as divine hybrids. The practice didn't survive the conquest, but the legal logic did. When Spanish colonizers needed to legitimize their rule, they claimed Christian providence, divine right. When European monarchs needed to hold power, they claimed a descent from biblical kings who themselves claimed divine ancestry. The 1649 trial of Charles I of England included theological debate about whether kings were partly divine and thus immune to earthly law. The judges said no. They beheaded him. But the argument was made in an official court of law. The Starborn claim never really died. It just changed costumes. Enheduanna's tablets end with a line that translator Betty de Shong Meador renders as, "I am Enheduanna, the woman who carried the divine seed." She died around 2250 BC. Her works were copied and studied for 500 years after her death, longer than the entire history of the printing press. She's not a myth. She's catalogued. YBC 4656. You can request access. But here's what we still don't know. Did she believe it? Did Hatshepsut? Did Ixquique's real-world counterpart? We have their legal claims. We have their institutional power. We have the state records proving their children were treated as gods. But we don't have a single diary entry, a single private letter, where any of them say, "This is a lie I tell for power." Maybe they believed. Maybe belief was irrelevant. Maybe the question itself is modern. Because for 3,000 years, across empires that never met, the formula worked. Claim the stars. Bear the god. Rule the earth. And if the stars didn't answer, the scribes wrote it down anyway. The evidence is in the archives. This is history. We'll see you in the next one.